Good morning. I'd like to welcome Stephanie Wagner from Healthy Minds Innovation to the call today. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here with you, Christal. Yeah.
It's great to have you. You were just spending some time with our employees, sharing some of the wonderful ideas and methods that Healthy Minds Innovations offers to help employees and people in general with crises and in just everyday life. So I'm so thankful for you spending time with our team, but I'd like to just maybe take a couple minutes and allow you to introduce yourself and what Healthy Minds Innovation is all about.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Stephanie, and I'm a trainer and program specialist for Healthy Minds Innovations. I'm also a board certified health and well-being coach. I have a lot of passion around health and well-being really in all areas. And I am a part of Healthy Minds Innovations. We are a nonprofit that's affiliated with the Center for Healthy Minds at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, a research institution. And basically what we do is we take insights from the science and we translate them into tools to help people both cultivate as well as measure well-being.
Mm-hmm. So this is probably a time where people are tapping into your expertise and your, your insights and your strategies. And so, knowing that this is a trying time and maybe a unique one where everyone's going through a difficult time, what are some of the common challenges that people are facing right now? Are there just themes of things that you're seeing that are consistent across the people that you're talking to?
Yeah, I mean, there are really sort of two primary themes that seem to be happening really on a global scale. The first is around loneliness and isolation. And of course, our social relationships are in upheaval. And then the second one, and this is something, of course, that was touched upon too in the webinar, is around uncertainty. And so it's not just uncertainty in one area, it's uncertainty in so many areas, financial uncertainty, there's health uncertainty, for some people employment uncertainty. So there's a lot there which can be really challenging. And what is underlying all of these experiences is, of course, stress. And stress has real consequences on our well-being, and it can really trigger a whole host of sort of psychological and emotional responses.
Yeah, that sounds, it's something that sounds familiar. I think I can personally relate to some of those things you're saying, but when I've talked to our employees, some of those things have certainly come up as we've tried to stay open to how this is affecting them. If you can, and I'm sure there's more than a few things that you could maybe give examples of, but maybe what are some of the tips or some of the advice that you'd have that would be something we can relay just as a couple of top one or two things that you would think about?
Yeah, there are two things that come to mind. I think the first is to really help to reorient our minds away from focusing on the negative, right? Because there's just so much uncertainty there, and really kind of turning our mind to something that's more positive. And so what we can do is we can cultivate this through a practice like appreciation. And so I think we've all had those moments where, you feel that warmth, you feel that sense of connection and a sense of appreciation. And it can be appreciation for a person, someone in your life. It could be appreciation for some circumstances or something just as simple as something in your environment, having a safe home to work within. So this is something that could be done as more of like an intentional practice where you get up and, and you write down the 5 things that you appreciate. It could be something that could happen just organically in the middle of your day. And it also could be done as a family, sitting down at the dinner table and just sharing one thing that you appreciate. So there are a lot of ways that this can happen, but it really helps to begin reorienting your mind to things that are more positive in your experience rather than focusing on what's going wrong.
I think the mindset aspect of that, and just, I think that's something that in everyday life, but certainly at a time like this, is so critical. And thinking about how to focus on those elements. It's just such a good reminder of a good practice in every day, but never more so than now. Okay. When you think about, go ahead. I'm sorry.
There was one more that I wanted to share, if I may.
Absolutely.
Which is really around awareness and really paying attention to physical sensations in the body. So the reason why I say this is because what can happen when we're sitting in front of our computer all day long, we're on Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, is that we can really tune out we can tune out what's going on, right? So like really by noticing what's going on with our body, we can make wise decisions around our well-being. You know, is it that we need to call somebody if we're feeling lonely? Is it that we need to go get a drink of water? Is it that we need to go walk around the block?
Yep.
And so it's a really important practice. And so again, this is something that can happen organically, but it's also something where you could just set a timer a couple of times throughout your day to be like your well-being check. And you just like basically begin to notice those sensations in your body. And then you can make a decision around how to proceed from there.
You know, I love that. I think the intentionality of it is really critical, of just making sure that you're staying aware, but then you're putting those reminders. That's an amazing tip. When I think about scaling this across an organization, or thinking about how to bring this to employees or a larger base, because a lot of those things, you know, people may have different sensitivities or even level of their own awareness about how much it's affecting them. What is your advice of this in an employee, you know, setting, and how people should approach this in a way that can help in the most constructive way that can have the biggest impact for an employee base?
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of things. I mean, I think first and foremost, just acknowledging that this is a difficult time, right? So for employees to feel, you know, heard, that the organization knows that it's a challenging time. There's just a lot there in which people can feel supported. But then I think the other thing is to, you know, put in processes or structures in place as the organization is able to allow people to tend to their well-being. And so, you know, ideas on a very small scale would be to do things like, you know, giving employees an opportunity to be able to connect outside of meetings, during virtual tea time or virtual lunches. That can really help to combat some of those consequences of loneliness and isolation. That can be really helpful. Another idea is to, you know, when you get into a meeting, having a moment of silence, like a moment of pause, where people just are allowed to, like, you know, kind of just take a couple of deep breaths before we launch right into the meeting.
Great idea.
So it can just be, again, a couple of moments, a couple of deep breaths, the invitation there, setting a timer for a minute of silence, something like that, just to like allow people to like really land. There can be this sense of accelerating from meeting to meeting, and a lot of spinning, right? So to just ground and have a little space. Now, and if the organization is able, I think the other thing would be supporting space in different ways. So another way to support space is through shortening meeting times. And so rather than having meetings last every hour on the hour, shortening them so that they last 50 minutes or 55 minutes, giving people some transition time, again, to just tend to their well-being.
It's a really good point. And it's something that I've heard, is that I feel like people are feeling they're working harder and longer than ever, because everything is a closely timed, you know, Zoom meeting or call. I think that's a really interesting way of helping people through this, for sure. And so really good tips from you. And so I think there's a lot that we could really unpack here, and knowing that it's such an important topic and something that really takes practice and conscious effort towards. How would we continue to learn more about HMI and the things that are going to be really instrumental in making sure that people can get through this in a mentally healthy way? What would we point them to?
Yeah, I think we have a resource that's just great. It's an app, and it's an app basically that takes people step by step through training their minds in these qualities associated with well-being and resilience. And they can download the app on the App Store, or they can go and read about the program on our website, tryhealthyminds.org. The way that the program is organized is essentially there are these short podcast style learns, so to speak, where you learn about a little bit about the science, you learn about the practice, and then there are guided practices then that you do throughout the program, which is really sort of like the mental repetitions of like learning that skill. And there's a lot of flexibility within the program in terms of, you don't have to just sit down and do a seated practice. You can do active practices. You can choose speaker voice if you want a male or a female. You can choose a 5-minute practice or a 30-minute practice, anywhere in between. So there's just a lot of ways in which you can try and work with the program in a way that meets your lifestyle and the amount of time that you have available.
I love that. And I really appreciate the perspective and the guidance on this. I feel really strongly and deeply that it's a big part of everyday life, but like I said, never so much now in terms of the importance of the awareness and the practice and the intentionality of it.
Yeah.
And some of the smallest tips could go a really long way to help people kind of get through. A day feels a lot longer than 24 hours these days. So
yeah,
so you're doing great
true?
work, and we
Yeah.
really appreciate you, and so grateful to have you on with the team a bit earlier and to share a little bit more in this session. So thank you very much, Stephanie. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you
I
so
hope
much.
you
I
have
look
a
forward
great
to it.
day.
Yeah,
Okay.
you too. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.